Kevin Bowen here. Don't forget to listen to The Fan now on 93.5 or 107.5 FM, and check out our latest coverage online at 1075thefan.com.
Colts down by a touchdown. They're working the 2-minute drill here. They've got all three of their timeouts. Brissett takes a shotgun snap. He looks left, fires that way. It's picked off. It's picked off by Eric Harris, and he will trot into the end zone for a touchdown. Jacoby Brissett threw it to Harris, looking for Zach Pascal, and Harris picked it off at the 30-yard line. That's a pick six for the Raiders.
Penalties, drops, critical red zone turnover. Honestly, sounds like something we'd say on a 2018 Colts podcast from this time last year. But no, that's what we're saying right here on this 2019 edition of Kevin's Corner. I am Kevin Bowen, Joey Molinaro across the way, and as you just heard there, from Matt Taylor, a pick six from Jacoby Brissett was probably the final nail in the coffin of the Colts, losing 31-24 to the nearly touchdown underdog Oakland Raiders on Sunday afternoon. We're back, another edition of Kevin's Corner, and man, that was ugly, Joey. That was, self-inflicted stuff, the defense being the defense. I don't think Jacoby Brissett certainly played his best game of 2019. Eric Ebron looked like he belonged in the XFL.
Yeah.
And that's going to add up to a loss that I expected better. I expected more of a professional approach from this football team.
Especially when you think about it, you have the opportunity to be 3-1 heading into Arrowhead.
Golden opportunity.
Right? Like you said, about a touchdown favorite. And really from the get-go, from the first drive for Oakland, you kind of knew what kind of game it was going to be.
Who looked like the West Coast team playing 10 a.m. local time, traveling multiple time zones, getting ready to board a plane. I think they're going to London right now. I mean, the Colts look like that team, and that was shocking to me. I was stunned.
Yeah.
You know, I was really disappointed in just the lack of discipline that we saw out of the Colts from the onset. And, something I think we touched on Thursday's podcast is I felt like if you gave Oakland hope early in the game, they could be in this football game.
Yep.
And, I mean, you talk about hope. I mean, they get the ball to start the game. I know Frank Reich's a big proponent of deferring to start the second half, but you just put so much faith in a defense right now that is struggling. And I don't know if I like that. You got down 14-0, and then really the game turned, or at least got more interesting, basically, once Derek Carr and Josh Jacobs had that muffed exchange. That was a gift.
Yeah.
And that's how the Colts got back into it. And, in a way, we were talking in the press box after the game, it feels like the Jets game from last year. When you had all those drops out there, you lose to them in kind of a high-scoring game. The only issue is Derek Anderson and the Buffalo Bills aren't sitting there in a home matchup next Sunday. As you said, it's a trip to Arrowhead. It's Patrick Mahomes. Then you come back from the bye week, and you have the Houston Texans. And it's just you lose a lot of goodwill with this loss because now you're playing a little bit behind the eight ball again. You could have been 3-1. You could have been playing at this house money, have the over 500 record going into the bye week, having the lead in the AFC South. But I don't know, man. Fans should be very, very disappointed with the type of effort that I think we saw yesterday and just the undisciplined aspect of it. And a couple things that I want to get to before we talk about things that I didn't like and things I liked. I thought there was a drive early in the game. I think it was the second drive of the game when you were down 14-0 that pretty much summed up the entire afternoon. Colts have the ball. Marlon Mack loses 5 yards. That was when you saw the Oakland DN, guess it right, move inside, beats Braden Smith to the inside. Boom, there's Mack tackled in the backfield, loss of 5. You had so many negative run plays yesterday, which is, again, that's an anomaly for this team. So then you have that. Glowinski gets a penalty on the very next play. Again, not something we've seen out of the Colts. They only had 5 penalties. I think 2 or 3 were taken out because of offsetting penalties. And then you had Chester Rogers drop, Eric Ebron alligator arms, and you're punting on 4th and 20. Like, that could have summed up absolutely everything right then and there. Just like those 3 plays were the story of the day offensively for the Colts. And I know that some people will debate or want to get into the onside kick. I'll just talk about it briefly. I would have liked to have seen it tried. Am I going to say that it's like a top 4 reason the Colts lost this game? No, not at all, because I get why Frank Reich said what he said after the game, and that you have a better chance if you kick it deep. You're going to win field position. Maybe you pin them inside the 15. And the chances nowadays of getting an onside kick are even more slim.
Right.
Because you can't put
can't overload.
Yeah, you can't overload sides to a kicking formation. So you can't have 7 on one side, 3 on the other anymore. But my thought is this: why are you putting all your eggs in the basket of the defense? That's what you're doing there.
Mm-hmm. What have they shown you to make?
What
you
have they shown you?
That?
Right. I mean, like Josh Jacobs 7 yards, Josh Jacobs 5 yards. The game's over.
Yeah.
So I get it. It's a very low percentage of you stopping them in the 3 and out, and getting the ball back and having a chance to win the game. It's probably even lower percentage to get the onside kick. It definitely is. But when you talk about all these analytics, they don't take into account for one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and that's what the Colts have right now. So, I thought that was something that just give you another chance. Try the onside kick. If you get it, obviously great. If you don't get it, you're still going to have to travel a good amount of the field to go to get that tying touchdown, send the game into overtime.
Let's start with things you didn't like, Kevin. Obviously, after a loss, it's going to be first and foremost. And even though you said that it's not the best defense in the NFL by any means right now, they did have quite a few people out yesterday. Still, though, there's some issues even with them being out.
Right. These are non-personnel issues. Yes, you were without 3 of your top 5 or 6 players. Now, having said that, when you are without those guys, the fundamental aspects of football have got to be to perfection, and they weren't even close to that. For the Colts, like I said earlier, leading off this podcast, it felt like I was watching the 2018 Colts early in the season. The drops, the penalties, the Paris Campbell red zone turnover, we probably haven't talked about too much, but that's a play where if you can get a field goal there, that could change some things and how the rest of the game goes from there.
Ebron's drops really overshadows that. Yeah,
right.
I just now remembered that.
Yeah, and we will get into Ebron a little bit later. I'm going to group all the drops together. You probably had 5 official drops. You also had a muff from Rodgers. You had another drop where he got drilled. Again, some people will debate the definition of that drop, but like the Raiders, they aren't good. Like, they were okay yesterday, a little bit better than okay, but they had 11 penalties.
Yeah.
Their best defensive player gets ejected. I think he's their best. I mean, he should be.
Well, Marcus Joyner looked pretty good yesterday.
He did look good,
Holy
man.
cow.
Wow. They had come into this game outscored 62-14 in the last 6 quarters. 14 points and 18 drives. They played 2 drives on Sunday, and they had 14 points. Like, this is not a good football team. When you look at the 2019 schedule, this is one of your easiest games at home. And so all of these issues that you self-inflict yourself with early in the games, that is giving an Oakland team that needs hope, needs something to believe in, you're giving them more of that. And I thought that was a huge issue, especially when I consider the Colts' strengths, Joey. Your strengths. Again, this is not personnel related because you were healthy on the offensive line. The run game wasn't there in the first half when Marlon Mack was healthy. Your tight ends. We look at that as probably the strongest position group on this team, and those units did not deliver at all. I thought the O-line, you got whipped in the trenches. And I know that you can look at the stats after the game and be like, well, Jacoby Brissett was he sacked once, maybe once? He wasn't sacked too often in that game, but you could not get anything going running the football early on, and then when you had to go with, I think Mack only had 2 carries in the second half. Jacoby Brissett wasn't even sacked. Wasn't sacked in almost less than 50%. Obviously, the 5 drops don't help you out there. But your strengths, that's why I felt like I was confident in the Colts winning this football game. You had the O-line. You ran for over 200 yards last year in the meeting out there. Your tight ends, all 3 of them had a touchdown last year in that meeting. And those guys didn't step up and deliver for you. So I think that is what is the most alarming aspect of it, was just the fundamental aspect of things was missing. And then especially offensively, what you rely on, what you consider your bread and butter of winning in the trenches, running the football, establishing your tight ends, that wasn't there either. So I think that was probably maybe the most frustrating aspect of it, leading to, I think a game that we'll look on as one of the worst losses. Really, the first time I've ever looked at a Frank Reich team, Joey, and thought, unprepared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's something I don't know if I've ever said. Even last year, early in the season, I don't know if I ever really echoed that. But that looked like it looked like a Chuck Pagano team, honestly. Which again is not something that I'm used to saying, and nor do I think it'll become the norm. But in a season that margin for error is so slim, thank the Lord you play in the AFC South.
Maybe I'm just grasping for straws here, Kevin, but I do think there is sort of that human element of back-to-back home games. You're 2-1. You just won last week. Everybody is talking already. Everybody's excited. Even without Luck versus Mahomes, everybody's excited for that rematch out in Kansas City next week and on Sunday night. Is there any human element there to where it's like they just came out dead? They came out as a dud.
Yeah, I mean, human nature certainly I think is very real, but I just expected Frank Reich's football team to handle themselves in more of a professional manner. And almost like the way you lost week 1 in LA with a slim margin for error and Vinny missing those kicks, I like to think inside that locker room, they kind of look at each other and they're like, all right, guys, our margin for error is slim. We have got to take care of business.
True.
We cannot overlook anyone in this league. And it's a locker room for the most part that I think is wired of guys that wouldn't do that. Like maybe Eric Ebron has one eye looking ahead to Kansas City. I could maybe see that. And he mentioned after the game he felt like he lacked energy and he took blame for the team lacking energy. But for the most part, I think those guys are wired in a way where you can't take anything for granted in this league. Justin Houston's the 3rd-round pick, always feeling like he has to kind of prove himself to be one of those elite guys. Kansas City just cut him. Obviously Jacoby Brissett has a lot to prove just in general this season. And think about all of your, some of those young wideouts really struggled. I mean, Deion Kane, 5 targets, no catches. I mean, that hype train has just come to a crashing halt. So, yes, I mean, a little bit of human nature, but I expected better out of this coaching staff and ultimately out of this team.
Well, you mentioned the coaching staff, Kevin, and, it's kind of back-to-back weeks now that we've seen the defensive scheme where people are looking around saying, what the hell are we doing here?
And we have beaten this horse to death, and we'll continue to do it until it changes because it is a glaring issue. When you're missing the personnel that you're missing, your scheme has got to try and help you make up for it. And the defense did not do that at all on Sunday. And I thought the healthy unit, your defensive line, they were whipped. I mean, Oakland is gashing you with their running game.
Yeah, jeez.
And 1 sack, which is the stupidest sack in the world. It's Derek Carr running out of bounds for a no gain, which goes in the book as a sack.
Yeah.
Anthony Walker will happily take that.
Uh-huh.
But, in this scheme, Joey, I feel like you have got to have elite talent. It's something to where any loss of Malik Hooker or Darius Leonard and you get exposed. And the Colts have been exposed through the first 4 weeks of the season. And I think I was maybe always kind of last to get on the old Eberflus train and this defense is going to be great this year.
Yeah.
I was always kind of like, let's see them play some good quarterbacks before I'm ready to go there. Even Chris Ballard said last month, he mentioned, at some point in 2019, I think we're going to look down and see a great defense. We're 4 games into it. It's only a quarter, but that defense ain't even close to good. Yeah. It's not even close to mediocre right now. The thing that is really frustrating Frank Reich the most is the rush defense. I think it's 5.5 yards per carry you've allowed. And remember, that was an element of your defense that was so good for you last season. You finished last year 6th in the NFL in rushing defense. Houston and Autry played 90 snaps yesterday. 90 snaps combined. They had 2 tackles. 2 tackles, and your best defensive player yesterday was a guy that's been out for 2 months, Jabaal Sheard. He was your best defensive player. I think a big issue that I have with this scheme, Joey, because yesterday it was twofold. It was the personnel on the defensive line, and then it was scheme as well late. The scheme doesn't help you in field position at all. Because, think about it. They're vanilla. They want to give up. They allow completions to be given up, and they're eventually going to stop you. Yep. What that's doing is that's not helping you in the field position game at all. So it's putting more pressure on your offense, which is missing their best skill player, to have to drive 80, 90-plus yards. That's just a lot. It's not the complementary football that I think you would want to see. It's just, I'd love to get some true serum inside of Frank Reich and be like, what do you think about Eberflus? What do you think of that scheme? Because it's so polar opposite from how Frank Reich thinks about him offensively.
Yep.
And remember, obviously, the Eberflus hiring was a Josh McDaniels, Chris Ballard sort of hiring. And it's just 2 third downs stand out to me. There's a 3rd and 8. You bring 2 DBs, and you don't get home. Geathers and Kenny Moore blitz. You don't get home. The most frustrating play maybe of the game was a 3rd and 6, early 4th quarter. You've got them backed up, I think, inside their own 20. And Foster Moreau settles right at the chains, maybe a yard or 2 past the chains. So that is 6-7 yards from the line of scrimmage. Your linebackers, Anthony Walker had vacated that area. He was a little bit to the right. And I guess it would have been Okereke, is who I'm guessing would have been the other linebacker. He's not even in the picture. Your safeties are too deep. Kari Willis is too late to come up and make a play. And Derek Carr just has a pitch and catch that would be there on a 3rd and 20. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to play that defense on a 3rd and 20, come up, make a tackle, rally around him, get off the field. On a 3rd and 6, you allow just such a lack of resistant sort of completion, conversion, and you're moving on.
Right. It's like the biggest coin flip money down. Third, you know what I mean? It's not 3rd and 1s where it's okay, offense, or it's not like you mentioned 3rd and 20. 3rd and 6 is all right, who's going to scheme it up best and make the play, And
it to me, it's like it didn't take some exotic scheme in that situation. Just plant Anthony Walker or Bobby Okereke at that first down marker.
Yeah.
And if anything comes over the middle, whether it's Josh Jacobs on a bit of an angle route over the middle or it's a crosser. Think about all the underneath stuff that you see run on a 3rd and 6. Derek Carr scrambling. Somebody that is up there to take away the 3-4 yard dump that can turn into a 6-yard gain. Yeah. And, the Colts have said all week, man, Derek Carr gets the ball out so quick. Derek Carr gets the ball out so quick. Derek Carr was sacked 7 times. 7 times in the previous 2 weeks. So the Chiefs and the Vikings, they were able to get home against Derek Carr. And this is less that I put on. Trust me, the defensive line was not good on Sunday, Joey, but I put more of the lack of pressure on schematically how you use your pass coverage. Can you press? Can you choke? That's kind of a sexy term of getting up there, trying to disrupt that timing when you're defending guys on the outside. And I just don't see enough of that. I'm definitely going to go back and take a closer watch at exactly how much zone, how much man, those sorts of things. But to me, there's just not enough variety and creativity on that side of the ball when your personnel is missing its two best players. And even early in the season, I mean, there were issues against Phillip Rivers. There were issues when, Matt Ryan and Malik Hooker was healthy, for the first, parts of that Atlanta game as well, where it just seems like you're so reliant on that offense having to screw up. And when Derek Carr, who's a competent quarterback, can get into a rhythm, things like that are going to happen. So, lastly, before we move on the defense, it does look like Margus Hunt has been benched. Grover Stewart got the start over him and played a lot more snaps than him. I think that's deserved. I don't think Hunt has been good at all this season. Danico Autry, I thought, struggled yesterday against his former team, and it's a big wake-up call for this defense right now because they've been absolutely terrible for the first month of the season.
Eric Ebron. There's really nothing else to say besides that.
I played shitty. I sucked. Those are Eric Ebron's words after the game, and those accurately describe how he played. We're sitting there waiting for Eric Ebron to get dressed and get ready to talk to the media, and I was talking a little bit to Jack Doyle about the Burfict hit, and all of a sudden I hear Ebron kind of mumbling to himself as he's getting changed, and he's like, he's mimicking what the questions are he's about to get from the media. So he's talking to himself. He's like, Ebron, why'd you play so effing shitty today? Like he's saying all that to himself before.
Okay, so mental prep,
Yeah.
All right.
And then he turns around, and it took a while. It took a couple questions before we got into that, but he was terrible, flat out terrible. And as he said, he probably didn't deserve that touchdown late in the game. I'm sure his fantasy owners were thrilled for that garbage time TD, but you're without your Pro Bowl wideout. You're going to look to your Pro Bowl tight end to step up. And when you have those issues, this is why I probably have definitely hinted at this, and I'll say it right now, I would not be bringing Eric Ebron back in 2020.
Yeah, you've always leaned Doyle.
I have leaned reliable, trustworthy, and I don't know if he gives you enough elsewhere to make up for the inconsistencies because he doesn't block. He's not playing on rundowns, and Frank Reich was very non-committal when I asked him after the game if Eric Ebron got benched. He didn't get outright benched, but definitely that final 2-minute drive late in the first half, it was Jack Doyle on the field and not Eric Ebron. And that's usually Ebron's kind of money package, the single tight end, 2-minute stuff. And if you look at the snap counts, Eric Ebron played a season low. Jack Doyle's percentage was a season high. So read into that what you will.
I think Frank Reich knows that Ebron mentally can a little fragile.
Did you see that? He chucked that helmet.
Yeah. I was waiting for Old Takes Exposed or somebody to say, this didn't age well, because I tweeted, you don't need that helmet, and then he caught a touchdown later in the game, but you get the point.
Yeah. Darius Leonard going over to him, trying to play counselor, David Thornton, Nick Sirianni. You had everybody trying to go over to him and calm him down or whatever, realign him. Yeah, it's just, if you go back to the drop, I guess which drop, people will say, there was a drop on 2nd and 20, kind of near the red zone, where he could have caught it and set yourself up for the 3rd and manageable, got you into kind of reasonable field goal range. The next play, Paris Campbell fumble on the 3rd and 20. It's just, you put so much pressure with those drops when you're already missing Hilton, and that's your best skill player. And now you're going to look towards another veteran, like I said, a Pro Bowler. And he played like he belonged in the AFL, XFL, insert whatever league that you enjoy watching when it's not the NFL. Like, that's how he looked. And that might sound harsh, but that is how he played yesterday. I respect him for talking and being candid after the game, but words are words. Sooner or later, you just got to show up, and you got to act. And we've seen this. Like last year, the second lowest catch percentage of his career, he had a big drop in Kansas City, a big drop in New England. It just seems to rise up at bad times, man. Just bad times. Drops were aplenty, but I expect more out of Eric Ebron than I do out of a Chester Rogers or a Deion Kane. I do. You're the 10th overall pick. You are a Pro Bowler. You're a guy that is counted on to deliver for this football team, especially when T.Y. Hilton is in street clothes, not your fourth wideout Rogers, your fourth wideout Kane, other guys like that. And that was a pathetic performance for number 85.
Lastly, of things you didn't like from yesterday, Kevin, Jacoby Brissett's pick 6.
I didn't think Jacoby Brissett was terrible yesterday, but he wasn't good. Frank Reich said after the game, I thought Jacoby was really good. And yeah, I mean, Frank Reich knows 1,000 times more than I know, but Brissett could have got picked on the first pass of the game, I think. That 3rd and 11 to Doyle, threw it into quadruple coverage.
Oh, yeah, it was close.
And certainly he did not get helped out by some of those drops. But I don't think he played great by any means. Now, the pick 6. From what I've been told by a pretty reliable source, Zach Pascal ran the wrong route or did something. I don't want to get into too much detail, but basically he did something that was a fatal error for a sort of receiver to do on that route. Which is rare because Pascal seems like a guy that they trust, more than anyone. Okay, let's blame Zach Pascal then for some of it, but why is Jacoby Brissett so locked in that is his throw on first down? First down. That might be where I have the biggest issue. Live to see another down. It's 4 down. I mean, at that point of the game, you were going for it. I mean, hell, you were going for 4th and 2s long before that, deep in your own territory. So just throw it at his feet. I mean, throw it over his head and out of bounds. I mean, that had no chance. Eric Harris sat on that so easily. Maybe Jacoby doesn't deserve total blame, but if that's Andrew Luck, we're ripping him, every which way for throwing that pick in a critical situation. And that's the next step. If you're going to tell me the start of the year, Jacoby Brissett, 10 touchdowns and 2 picks through the first 4 games, I'd say, where do I sign? Yeah, I mean, hell yeah. But this is the next step for Jacoby Brissett. A critical drive. You're down 7 points with 2 minutes to go in this football game. And are you the reason that you're down 7 points? No. Jacoby Brissett is far down on the list. But we grade quarterbacks in those type of settings. And Brissett, he hasn't been in a whole lot of those settings. And when he has been, he's only started, 20-some games in his NFL career. He has not delivered in those settings. And again, there haven't been many of them, but that's the next step for him. Can you go win us a football game if you're Frank Reich? Can you go force overtime and try to hide some of the deficiencies that you have had elsewhere? It was just there's this balance with Jacoby Brissett, Joey, that I feel like the Colts want him to be decisive. At times, I feel like decisive and locking in on the first read
can be problematic.
Yeah. And I see that, which, again, I get that there's a bit of a fine balance there, but that's a worry that I have with Brissett right now. Marcus Brady, the quarterback's coach, talked last week about how he feels like Jacoby's ability to break down a defense, know where he needs to go with the football, they have improved, and he is being more decisive. He is getting the ball out quicker, which is great. But when you lock in and your eyes don't scan the field, do you become predictable with things? So that would be something that I would have a concern of moving forward with number 7.
All right, a couple things you did like, even with the loss yesterday, and one is the return of Jabaal Sheard. You mentioned he'd been out 2 months, and he looked really good.
Dude, I was shocked he played. I don't think he practiced full at all last week. So he hasn't had a full practice since the Chiefs game in January. The guy missed the entire training. I mean, he got hurt the first day of training camp, missed all of training camp. Been practicing for 2 weeks, played over 50% of your snaps, so played a decent amount. Didn't start, but he played a lot. He had 4 tackles. That guy plays 34 snaps. He has 4 tackles. Justin Houston, Danico Autry played 90 snaps. They combined for 2 tackles.
Oh, man.
Jabaal Sheard.
They had that one, I think it was the screen setup.
Beautiful read of the screen.
Yeah, he just
beautiful read
hopped off the block and came down the line of scrimmage.
And you need him. When you talk about this run defense being poor this year, you need a Jabaal Sheard now. So I thought that was very encouraging. That guy's taken for granted. Is he going to be an 8-9 sacker? No, he's not. Jabaal Sheard is a guy that plays on early downs. He was in your rush package yesterday. I don't even know if you call it a rush package. You might call it a go-kart package.
Yeah,
a
parade lap.
Razor
package.
scooter. I don't know what speed they were moving at, but it was not fast. The speed they were moving at was more of Jacoby Brissett scrambling and less Lamar Jackson scrambling.
Right. All right, last thing from things you learned here, and that was we saw some quality playing time. We're seeing more quality playing time for the rookies.
And I'm glad that you phrased it like that. Quality playing time does not necessarily mean quality play. They were on the field.
Right.
But it's not like they were great for you yesterday. But I think it's worth noting, and that's why I put it in things I like, because if this team's going to make the playoffs this year, the 2019 rookies have to deliver for you. And if this team is going to be a team that has sustained success moving forward, you need development, certainly, out of these young guys. And they were not good yesterday. I don't want to have people misinterpret what I'm saying, but for those of you that like to have one eye looking towards the future, which I think a lot of people do, which is fine. I'm a fan. I'm encouraged when Notre Dame play their freshmen a little bit more, things like that. Sure. The amount of playing time they got and the expected growth that should come with that playing time, that was there. I mean, you started 4 rookies. 4 rookies you started. Kari Willis, Bobby Okereke, Rock Yassin on defense, and then Paris Campbell on the offensive side of the ball. So that's a lot of rookies that you were playing. EJ Speed, Ben Banigou, they even subbed in the game and played a good amount. Speed played a lot. Speed played a ton more than Matthew Adams as that Sam linebacker. So you need more from your rookies. I thought on the 60-yard end around, that dude was crazy. The guy running those end arounds for Oakland. He was just the fastest guy on the playground.
He took off, man.
That one time it was a double end around. He's like, oh, nothing over here. I might try the other side and get 15 yards out of it. On the touchdown, Anthony Walker, total misassignment there. Doesn't see that coming at all. And then all of a sudden, you have 3 rookies chasing the play. Ben Banigou doesn't set the edge. Bobby Okereke's late getting there. Kari Willis takes a bad angle. And it was kind of just, wow, there are your 3 rookies chasing after that play. You expect better out of them, and, baptism by fire a little bit with that group. But I do think it's notable that they are playing this much this early, because come late October and more so late November and December, you're going to need them if you're going to try and win the AFC South.
Post-loss Twitter isn't anywhere near as fun, but you ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, from @SmoothSmith, you can't put the offensive struggles all on Brissett, right? Receivers just weren't getting open, besides that horrendous interception to seal the game.
No, definitely not. I mean, I thought the lack of separation, Joey, was an issue. There were a couple times you tried to get Paris Campbell going on those crossers, and I thought Oakland sniffed those out really well and did not allow a ton of yards after catch. I mean, the offensive issues, Joey, I would honestly put drops, O-line not establishing the run for you. Obviously, drops include Ebron, and then lack of separation before probably Jacoby. I'm not absolving Jacoby at all. Again, we talked about some of the issue, but I'd probably put him 4th on the list.
From Robbie Loretta, hot take.
Oh boy,
this is the worst loss of the Ballard era.
Wow. That's hot on a Monday morning, but I don't think it's sizzling. I think it might be accurate. Do you kind of throw 2017 out the window?
That's what I mean.
Okay,
really, week one of 2017 was just because the lack of just having Scotty Tolzien and just not having a plan, and you get your ass kicked. That was awful. But then the rest of the year, it's like, okay, you're kind of just working with a patched up a job here.
And then I think back to the Jaguars game where you got shut out and Brissett was sacked 10 times at home. I mean, the Jags at that point, they were terrible at that point that season. I think you're both like 2-3. Yeah, God, that Rams loss. Oh my gosh, Scott Tolzien was melting. Scott Tolzien got asked after the game if there was something wrong with his arm, and he was so offended by that question.
Oh God,
that's how bad he looked. I think it's a worse home loss. Yeah, I do. Home, the lack of discipline. Yeah, I do. I mean, honestly, there aren't a whole lot of candidates last year. I mean, you can argue. I mean, Bengals. No, I'm not gonna go with the opener. Jets game. I tend to shy away from anything away from home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say it's certainly in the conversation, Robbie.
From Casey with a K, a lot of people were feeling this. What's the temperature of Matt Eberflus's seat on this Monday morning?
Well, it's not very hot, and I say that based off how the Colts think. I mean, they aren't going to be doing anything with Matt Eberflus anytime soon. They are staunch believers, and Chris Ballard hired the man, so that's not going to be happening. If I were running the show, there would be some warmth to that seat. I mean, it's such a stark contrast in philosophy, and it's almost maddening to me and confusing to me because it's so much different from what your head coach believes. You would think you'd have a general mindset across your coaching staff, and I get it. He was hired before Frank Reich was, but to me, I feel like if Frank Reich wanted to hire a defensive coordinator, and maybe he will have that opportunity to hire one, he's going to want a little bit more of an aggressively minded coach on that side of the ball. Mm-hmm. I would think that. I would guess that. Now I know Frank Reich has been in this system before, back with the Colts, but look, this defense doesn't have 93, 98 coming off the edge. I mean, it's the Colts aren't making any sort of switch at defensive coordinator. That is not happening. But the talk of Matt Eberflus as the Browns head coach, last year. Last year. That seems laughable.
Yeah.
Right now.
From Cody Felger, why is the defensive line playing so poorly? All signs pointed to an upgraded unit, but seems like pass rush and run defense are all below average.
Yeah, Cody, it's a fair question, and I'm a little bit surprised by it. I'm not like shockingly surprised. It's kind of like, all right, our guy, I'll put Sheard to the side, but it's like, our guys like Muhammad and Hunt, are they more rotational players that you're asking them to start? Like Autry has had flashes, but the consistency hasn't necessarily been there for him. And Justin Houston, he's only had one sack through 4 games. I don't think he's been as bad as that looks. Like, there's probably 150 guys in the NFL that have 1 sack through 4 games. But, there's a reason that Kansas City decided enough was enough. So, where is your impact there? Where's your Warren Sapp? To play in this scheme, you've got to be a lead in that front 4. And I just don't think they've been that. I would say the rush defense, though, is particularly frustrating because the personnel hasn't changed too much from the rush defense. I think we mentioned during the offseason, why aren't you bigger at defensive tackle? Wider. That was a bit of an issue. That's a group that, all those 30-year-olds up front, they just look like that they've, the first month of the season, they look like they've been on the back 9 a lot more than the front 9.
From Jason, on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you about our run defense? With all our emphasis on speed and gap integrity, it seems that we're unable to compensate for physicality up front, especially in the middle, and teams are able to take advantage of that.
Wow, I think that's very accurately put. Is that Jason?
Yes.
Yeah, nice work, Jason. Yeah, I mean, I'd put it at 7 or 8. I mean, it's a big. Think back to that Kansas City playoff game last year. They hit you in the mouth right at the. I almost cussed. Right at the gut.
Yeah.
They were boom, boom, boom,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we've seen more of that this season, where teams look at the Colts and they say, speed, speed, and speed. That's what you do on defense. You aren't big. They are not overly big. We're going to just pound it at you, and we're going to try and see if you can survive that. And the Colts cannot survive that. They just, right now, they are getting manhandled. And it's not like you've played these elite running backs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
or O-lines, really. I mean, Tennessee's
that as well, definitely. I mean, Tennessee didn't have Taylor Lewan. I mean, are you calling Derrick Henry a top 10 back?
He just brings that physicality. You know, he's that brute strength.
You haven't played a top 6, top 7 running back yet.
Yeah.
Whereas last year you did. You were playing Zeke and you played Joe Mixon and you played
Saquon.
I mean, and you did a great job, or at least a much better job than you've done this year. Yeah, I'd put it at 7 or 8, but now that I start talking, I might put it at even a little bit higher.
From Josh, how would you assess the rookie defenders so far? I feel like I'm partially spoiled by Leonard's play last year, but I haven't been too impressed aside from some flashes by Kari Willis.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate, Josh. You know, Rock Yassine's had a play or two, and then he's had a play or two where it's kind of a 50-50, try and make a play on the ball, and he doesn't make it. You know, I think when you look at Kari Willis, I love his fit as a near the line of scrimmage safety. You know, I see him taking over for Clayton Gathers next year, but are you a little bit more exposed down the field? Those sorts of things. Okereke hasn't done a whole lot for me, Joey, in these first 2 starts. Banogu, okay. EJ Speed, a couple of nice moments. So, yeah, it's been a very kind of meh sort of first 4 games, which it's very early for a lot of those rookies, though.
From Ivan, he's got 2 quick ones here. One, with the lack of push from the interior, do you think Jihad Ward can get more run?
No. I mean, I guess he might play a little bit, but, like, I don't think he's going to make some huge difference.
And 2, do you think the Colts bring back Krishawn Hogan if they think T.Y. can't go on Sunday in Kansas City?
No. I think they're going to roll with what they got at wideout. Ashton Doolin, the undrafted free agent off the practice squad, he actually played a few offensive snaps, which I was a little surprised by. To go back to the first point about Jihad Ward, I mean, you like to see Tyquan Lewis get healthy. You know, he had the ankle injury, and he's a guy that you expect to be the future kind of in that defensive line interior, and he didn't practice all week.
From Joshua Sutton, if I told you before the season that the Colts would be 2-2 at this point, tied for the AFC South lead, and Brissett would have 10 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, you'd be A, pleasantly surprised, B, thinking that's about right, and C, slightly disappointed. Or C, slightly disappointed.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good question, Joshua. Well, certainly the 10 I'm going to kind of pick apart the question. The 10 touchdowns on 2 picks, you'd be more than pleasantly surprised. Like, you would have signed up for that right away. 2-2, that sounds about right. You know, obviously not.
I think Atlanta would be more or Tennessee in the first 2 weeks.
Right. But I will say, if you're going to win any game in the first 4 weeks of the season, the Colts won the right game. You winning at Tennessee was monumental when you think about division tiebreakers and all that. I guess I shouldn't expect 2-2 to be tied for the lead of the AFC South. Like, it's the AFC South. I should know what this division has offered. But I did expect a little bit more out of this division, or at least some team starting the year 3-1. But, I mean, I think all in all, you probably would have taken 2-2, Joey. But it's just the margin for error has shrunk with yesterday's loss. And we talked about it. You need to go 7-1 at home. You need to go 6-2 at home to have, you know, a chance late in the season. Just say your prayers. Everyone say your prayers. I don't know how people do prayers, or if people don't, maybe they don't pray at all. The AFC South is the gift. It's the gift that keeps on. I mean, what? 9 wins?
Yeah.
What wins this division right now? Is it 9? Does someone get to 10?
Yeah. I mean, I would think that Houston would be another contender to get to 10, but after yesterday, where it's like you come home and you score 10 points, yeah, 9 seems about right.
So, yeah, I mean, you're definitely – Jacoby Brissett through the first 4 games, I think, has been slightly better than I thought he would be, but I was probably on the Jacoby Brissett more of like, I think he's the 25th best quarterback in the NFL. So I think he's been slightly better than that. Obviously, the touchdown to INT ratio is great. But yeah, that 2-2 record, man, a win yesterday could have given you such a reassurance for multiple weeks moving forward.
Yep.
3-2 at the bye if you lose to Kansas City, and you take care of business at home again. You're coming back to play Houston at home after the bye, and God, that was bad yesterday.
From Brett Stockglausner, is there any simple explanation for yesterday? It looked like we were watching the Dolphins in blue jerseys. I thought we were past the wild inconsistencies.
Yeah, I thought the Colts were past that as well. I mean, like I said, it looked like the 2018 Colts. It looked like an early season 2018 Colts. Self-inflicted stuff is probably the overarching theme of yesterday. That's the biggest reason why you lost. But I keep on going back to, like, Oakland had 6 more penalties than you, and probably what? 2 less drops? I mean, Oakland had drops. Tyrell Williams dropped a touchdown that could potentially ice the game. So, yeah, it was just it's crazy to me. It was just an unprepared football team, and it's still stunning to me that happened.
From at Colts with Grant, where are you placing more blame for this one? Player execution or coaching?
Well, some people would say, well, coaching leads to player execution. Look, the Colts got out-coached yesterday. Both sides of the ball. I mean, that was not Frank Reich's best schematic effort when Oakland, LaMarcus Joyner is guessing plays right and blowing you up in the backfield. Whoever that DN was, Morrow, I think it was, who blew you up in the backfield and had the big play on Marlon Mack. I mean, that is Oakland's defensive players feeling more confident that they can take those risks and having success with them than your offensive players establishing anything. So, yeah, I guess it is more so on coaching. Yeah, there are definitely player execution issues. You can't, drops are drops. I don't know how much a coach can necessarily cure that, but, mostly on defense, but also on offense. Schemes, systems, it was all a cluster yesterday.
From Jake, because of Nelson and Leonard, do you think we have overestimated Ballard's ability to draft? There are more than a few drafted players that look like busts.
I don't know. No, I'm not going to go there. Wow, Chris Morrison. Vontaze Burfict is facing a season-long suspension for his late conduct on field.
Dang.
All right. Sorry. Question again. That's on me.
Let me see here. From Jake, because of Nelson and Leonard, do you think we've overestimated Ballard's ability to draft? He says there are a few more drafted players that look like busts.
Yeah, I think that's premature to say. You can say, okay, Leonard and Nelson were obviously outstanding. Marlon Mack, I think, has overexceeded what you would think a normal 4th-round pick. Braden Smith, he looks like a nice starter for you. I don't know. He hasn't been great this year by any means. Naeem Hines, a nice role guy out of a 4th-rounder or 5th-rounder, wherever he was. So, yeah, let's not go there. Ballard has been better. He's been a pretty good drafter. I'm not ready to sit here and say, like, oh, my God, incredible. 2017 was a grand slam. 2018 was a grand slam. 2019, like, let's not go there. But I don't think we can all of a sudden. You can find some definite busts. I mean, Terrell Basham is a bust. Zach Banner is a bust. I mean, Quincy Wilson does not look like what you'd expect a normal 2nd-rounder. I guess you can debate the health of Malik Hooker. But 2018, I mean, you'd really be nitpicking. And it's still, I mean, we're still a bit young in a lot of these guys in their NFL development.
For sure. From Chris, stronger take. Jacoby's fine. His receivers let him down. Or Jacoby is too slow in his progressions and is a bigger part of the problem.
Well, I think that's a fair question to ask, and that's something that we mentioned earlier. Yeah, I mean, is he a little bit – where is that balance between being decisive and locking in on receivers and not, having the full progressions? Man, both those deep balls yesterday, I mean, those are a ton of coverage around him.
Paris Campbell had like 5 guys.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Both of them, and I was just kind of like, wow. I do think that there needs to be, for this team to make the playoffs, I do think Brissett has got to be better in some areas. The touchdown-interception ratio is outstanding. But I think there are other areas from a diagnosing, better with your eyes, throwing your receivers open, those sorts of things. Brissett could be a little bit better, but man, separation he's getting is just not pretty.
From Jonathan, at the start of the season, our wide receiver and safety depth was prevalent. 4 weeks in, and it seems both struggled mightily. Disappointed in Kane and his no-show on Sunday. Does Pascal need more touches?
How about, Kane, I talked about earlier, 5 targets, no catches. That is an issue. I guess, Pascal, I don't. There's more after catchability in there with Kane and Campbell, so I think you still have got to be like, all right, game 4 of these guys' rookie seasons, more or less. You still have got to get them involved. Yeah. You cannot ignore them by any means. But yeah, that's, I was one of the people on the Deion Kane sort of hype train, and he has not helped me out at all here early in the season.
From John, is our defensive problem more because of Ballard or Eberflus?
Well, again, did Ballard hire Eberflus? Yes. Yeah. So the question's probably asking, is it more personnel-driven or more schematic-driven? I think it's scheme more than personnel. I don't think your personnel is top 10 defense by any means. I don't, even when Darius Leonard and Malik Hooker are out there. And you do have a lot of young draft picks on that side of the ball that are still young in their development, but I think a lot of people thought, could this be like Atlanta's defense from a few years ago where you have all these young defenders and you get to be a Super Bowl type of team?
Yeah.
We haven't seen that at all out of this defense. So I'm more of a scheme guy, Joey. It's just I think there's enough personnel with scheme tweaks to be a better defense, to be a top half defense. But I still sit here and think you're going to need at least another offseason to get the impactful. I think you're missing that young, impactful guy on your defensive line. You could use something. You could use another body in the secondary as well. Maybe as more of that dominant number 1 corner. Is that going to be Rock Ya-Sin? Is it not going to be Rock Ya-Sin? Safety-wise, it's just a little bit. Do you have the right complementary piece next to Malik Hooker? You hope that's Corey Willis. But I think there's an impactful player missing out of the front 7 of this defense.
Jenny wants to know, why aren't our corners playing the ball in the end zone? Both those balls looked like a play could be made if Wilson and Ya-Sin were playing the ball.
Spot on, Jenny. I would agree with that. Rock Ya-Sin had the play, I think, of the Foster Moreau touchdown, and then Quincy Wilson had great coverage on the Tyrell Williams. Those are those 50-50, moments of truth. You got to make a play there, like point blank. And that's not scheme. That's personnel. That's where your guys have got to go up there and make a play. And those are plays that we probably don't talk enough about because it gave the Raiders momentum. It created that early lead. They were playing from ahead, multiple scores all game long. And if you're able to knock a ball down there and Paris Campbell isn't fumbling inside the red zone, all of a sudden that makes up for it.
Scotty's not feeling too great about next week. He wants to know, is there a chance Mahomes and company could put up 100-plus points on this Colts defense? Follow-up, at what point threshold would Eberflus move out of the most porous cover 2 in the NFL?
I saw the over-unders at 57 right now for next week.
It was 54.5 yesterday for Lions-Chiefs, and they went 34-30. So,
hammer the over.
I would say so.
I guess, can the Colts help out in that cause?
Right, yeah.
When is Eberflus going to change from the cover 2? He's not. He's definitely not. I don't know if I've been around an NFL coach that believes more in his philosophy than Matt Eberflus. And again, that might be very maddening to a lot of people. Probably should be. You have to see some evolving. What is the definition of insanity?
Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
And that feels like that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you've got to change some things up on that side of the ball because There are good quarterbacks in this league. There are great offensive minds in this league. And you made Oakland look like exactly that on Sunday.
If you thought Scotty was feeling bad, KB, Brad is feeling even worse. He says, I think it's pretty clear it's time for mock draft time.
Oh, God.
Even if on a positional basis, I see so many mocks having us draft a QB high in 2020. I'd love to see your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm probably more of a let's look at that route more than most. I mean, Frank Reich loves Jacoby Brissett. Loves him.
2-2, already mock draft time? I mean, holy cow.
That's insane.
Last week we were talking, people were saying, when they get to the Super Bowl, if they do this, I mean, it's just crazy.
There were a couple people in the media room saying, leading into the last game, you think the Colts could win 12 games?
Yeah, I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, I don't even know why I'm entertaining this question.
Because mock drafts are fun.
Yeah, they are fun. I think I will repeat what I've said even after the Atlanta game. Like, what I've seen out of the first 4 weeks of Jacoby Brissett, it's better than I thought I would see. Is it franchise quarterback, stamp it 100%? I don't think so, and that's my opinion. From what I've seen so far, it's, these guys have the negative connotations, but it is the Alex Smith, Andy Dalton, Dalton more in his kind of prime years.
Yeah.
I would want to see more of, this is a guy that can go win you a football game when your defense sucks. And I don't know if we've seen that yet. Atlanta, yes. But my sample size needs to be longer than 4 games. Sorry, Brad.
From Blake, and let's wrap up on this. We're coming up on an hour here. He says, how many of the practice squad moves are about taking flyers on players versus getting players that you can replicate certain scenarios of a game on their scout team? The Colts obviously run a 4-3 cover 2 scheme, but do they pick up players to replicate a 3-4 zone blitz scheme, let's say, the week that they play the Steelers?
No, they don't, Blake. I mean, occasionally when you're playing a left-footed punter, you'll bring in a left-footed guy to work out that week. If you're playing a mobile quarterback, maybe you want more of a mobile option running the scout team versus Brian Hoyer. But, I mean, Chris Ballard, they want those scout team guys to come up and play for him. Ashton Doolin played for him this past week. So they want guys that have been drafted or signed to their system. It's not as much scout team personnel as maybe you would see like in college. College, you just have bigger rosters. So it's easier to do that. Practice squad is really meant to like, hey, these guys are the next men up, to steal the old coaching cliche there.
All right, man. So coming off a loss, 2-2, Kansas City, Sunday Night Football this week. What do we got coming up the rest of the week?
So Chris Ballard will be on the Colts radio show tonight. He does the quarterly updates. So I'll have something up on 1075thefan.com recapping Ballard's comments. We'll hit on those then during Thursday's podcast. And I do want to kind of give a quarterly overview of what I think the Colts have looked like through the first 4 games. There's definitely some good. I mean, today probably was very doom and gloom based off the questions, but there is still a decent amount of good for this football team, and we will look at that, and we'll look at definitely some of the bad as well through the first 4 games, and we'll probably come back Thursday morning again with a Chiefs preview and recapping a little bit more of that Chris Ballard stuff from this week.
Sweet, man.
He's Joe Monero. I'm Kevin Bowen. Everybody, we appreciate you listening to this edition of Kevin's Corner. If you have any questions throughout the week, tweet them at me, DM me, and we'll get to them on Thursday. See you guys. This has been Kevin Bowen. Thank you for listening to another edition of Kevin's Corner. If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher for the best Colts and Pacers coverage.